Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Backseat Admiral. I'm John, and today we're going to be going over two of our latest games. So if you're in the chat, let me know how the mic sounds and everything like that. I did a bunch of updating on software on my computer, so hopefully this works out well for us. So I'm going to just keep talking while chat catches up. It is cold out today. But okay, now OBS is disconnecting. Interesting. I think I need to upgrade my Wi-Fi is what my issue is. Hey, what's up, Dublik? Sounds good, so glad about that. Okay, so let's get to it. We have two matches that we're going to be going over today. We have... Let me transition over to that. We have episode 7 and episode 8, and then after that we will be successfully caught up to date with Backseat. It's taken me a while and a couple double headers with how busy everything's been, but we'll be up to date. So the first game we're going to be going over is the Ramadi versus Leia game, which is MSU versus MSU. And those fleets were brought to us by... where is it? So the Ramadi fleet is brought to us by Banana Venom. And the Leia fleet is brought to us by Lance 550. So thank you very much for submitting fleets, and we were happy to be able to play them. And then our second matchup, Agate versus Grievous. The Grievous list is brought to us by Jeff Carpenter II. And the Agate list is brought to us by Grand Admiral Dux. So we'll get to that second. So we'll start off with the Ramadi vs. Leia game, which personally was super, super exhausting because I don't usually play MSU, and I usually don't play MSU against another MSU. That's why we kind of put them together. And it was just so many activations, and it was exhausting. This was like either the second or third game we had played that day, and we figured it's just going to be a lot of ships, and they're going to blow up really, really fast. And the deck of cards of ships blowing up really didn't kick in until like turn 4 or 5. So it was like 4 or 5 turns of us both activating. I think I had 6 activations. Ken had like 7 or something like that, because I have 6 activations and a pass token. Never thought that was going to happen. But let's go over the fleets. This fleet is very similar to the Madness fleet that did quite well with Leia. Let me go back. I'm curious because I forget who submits what lists back then. I want to make sure. I want to see who had the fleet. That's the wrong file. Let's see. Leia's fleet was submitted to us by Mike. So different person. So this fleet is very similar to our Leia fleet that did, I think, second in Madness last year. So it is a modified Pelta class assault ship, and you all know I love Pelta. Peltas in all the iterations are some of my favorite ships. It has Leia on it, and Leia's ability is if you reveal a dial and you don't use any tokens, that dial can be a dial and token effect. And she works pretty well with ships that want to be focused on doing one thing, or like MSU for this example, because you can just stack whatever you want on it. Doesn't mean that you don't take tokens though, because sometimes it's more important to be able to use like a nav token you've saved instead of using the concentrate fire, like for concentrate add a die reroll effect with Leia, because you might want to shoot, add a die, and then scoot. So just because you have Leia doesn't mean that you should be pigeonholed into only using her. Then it has Ramus Antilles. And this whole thing I'll explain when I get to the done with it. Projection experts in Shields to Maximum. So Shields to Maximum needs an engineering token to be able to power, and you have to spend it at the start of the ship phase. So before you can do anything else with the ships is the timing. So you need to basically end your previous turn or use Hondo to be able to power fleet commands like this. What Ray Antilles allows you to do is reveal an engineering. Ray Antilles gives you a token. Stop. And then when you resolve the engineering with Leia, Leia gives you a token effect without actually gaining a token. So then you can projection experts with your full 6 points token and dial worth of engineering, and then still have a engineering token. So at the start of the next turn, you can use shields to maximum. So this ship is allowing ships when they activate to restore a single shield with shields to maximum. And then when this ship activates, it's able to push 2 shields over to those ships. So this can just stay in the back and try to keep all the other ships alive. Cool ship. The rest of the fleet is 5 Hammerhead Scout Corvettes with Gunnery Team and Task Force Antilles. Task Force Antilles is the title that's generic, and you can put them on all your Hammerheads. And that allows you to pass damage from one to another one. And mic's going up. So not only are you regenerating shields with shields to maximum, and then the pelt is passing you shields, but each ship can then shuffle each attack 1 damage off to another ship. So I think I talked about this back when we were going over Madness Fleets, but I want to talk about it again just because when Ken and I first opened Hammerheads and we were playing at the old game store, Greenfire game, we played a game with this, and we totally misunderstood how this card worked. So since we've made a mistake in way past, I always like talking about it so other people don't make the mistake as well. But when you read it, when you suffer damage from an attack, you may choose and exhaust a copy of this card on another friendly ship at distance 1 to 3. If you do that, ship suffers 1 damage instead. While this card is exhausted, you cannot spend engineering points. Well, you're probably not going to be spending engineering points anyway with a Hammerhead, so that's not really a cost penalty. But what's the important part is what ship is doing this effect. So if you read it, when you, being the ship that this card's currently on, are attacked, you may choose another copy, and you exhaust it. So this ship is the one that's reaching over to the other ship to do the exhaust. And because of that, you can only do it then once. So I can't have like all 5 Hammerheads be like, oh, you hit me with 5 damage, shuffle it all to all those ships and I take 0. What this does is it allows you to transfer it once, which is different than another card that came out at like the same time. So I'm going to pull that up really fast, which is targeting scramblers for the interdictor. Where is it? That's experimental. So targeting scrambler reads, while a friendly ship at distance 1 to 3 is defending at close range, during the spend defense token step, you may exhaust this card to force the attacker to re-roll up to force dice. So it seems like it's the same thing, but it actually isn't, because the targeting scramblers is referring to you as the ship that card's on. So that means you can do it multiple times because multiple ships can do that effect. While this card, Task Force Antilles, activates the card on the other ships and makes it exhaust, you can only do it once, because you can really only do each thing once per like a card action, we would say once per timing window or activation, or however you want to phrase it. So Task Force Antilles, the card on the ship getting attacked, is the one that's exhausting the other card, while ship A to the interdictor, that card itself is the one that's exhausting, not the ship that's being defended. Hopefully that makes sense. It's pretty wordy, but there's a slight difference in it. So the first time Ken and I ever played with Hammerheads, I had a Sato list, and he attacked me, and I was like, okay, 1 damage over there, 1 damage over there, 1 damage over there, 1 damage over there. I take none, and then shields to maximum, and they all went back to full health. That's not how it works. You can move it once. It's still very powerful, and it's very good at keeping the ships around it alive. And then it has gunnery teams, and it has 2 red dice. So with Leia, 2 red dice becomes 3 with a reroll, and then you just chuck 2 red dice at another ship out the front. So you can keep them in like this little like shark, if you would, like hammerhead shark, like a kill box, and just move them forward. And you can just zap 2 ships at the same time. I like it. I liked it in Madness, and I liked it as a full fleet. And then for fighters, you have Shara and 2 A-Wings. Personally, I would have preferred just having Tycho than 2 A-Wings, but I can't really complain because the A-Wings really came through for me in the end to help kill that victory. I just like having even amount of deployments, but that's just me. That's the fleet. There's a lot of ships, but there's really only 2 ships to talk about because they're just copied off of each other, which actually makes running MSU less stressful, is that all the ships are the same, so you don't have to try to remember that there's a different ability to trigger off of every single one of them. One of the last times I really played MSU is when a Peltoff list, I think it was last season or 2 seasons ago, I had a Rebel Garm Pelta list. And that list is hard to run because every single Pelta is equipped with a different fleet command and different officers, and then you're trying to feed different Peltas different tokens. With this, you don't have to worry about it. I pretty much could set all my dials exactly the same across the board and just let Leia do her thing because all the ships are exactly the same. And when I get into combat range, I want concentrate fire. So when you're designing a list that's going to be mentally exhausting, think about it. And as you can see, like this has been thought about. Like the Pelta is doing engineering. There's no reason to do anything else. The first turn, I might do a navigate. But then after that, I'm just doing engineering until it dies. Hammerheads start off with a navigate, so you have the token, or you can adjust speed to try to hit your other player. And then it's concentrate fire until they die. It's only worth 50 points-ish each. Maybe a little bit more because of gunnery teams. 41, 7, 10, 51. Yeah, 51 points each. Suicide them across the board, and as long as they can together kill more points, you're solid. So let's move on to the next fleet. This is the Ramadi fleet, and it's a very unique fleet. Imperial MSU is extremely hard to play because of just their ships aren't as good as the other small base ships, to be honest. A lot of them are either in close brawlers, like gladiators, which gladiators by themselves, like demo's good. Normal gladiators aren't. Architens, which Architens are good, but their defense tokens means if you come against anything with actual firepower, they die. Raiders are good sometimes, not always. And again, if you sneeze at it, it dies because of the no redirect. And then Gazantes, and then it has a victory in it. I think that's why Ken chose to play this fleet, is just because it had a victory in it, which is kind of funny. So I'm going to start breaking this down. If you guys have any comments or thoughts or anything like that on the Leia fleet, hit up in the comments, and when I circle back, I'll answer them. So, or if you have any questions on this fleet either as we go, just post it down, and then when I'm done going over the fleet, I'll go back over your guys' comments and talk about it. Okay, so the flagship is an Arca-10 light cruiser with General Ramadi and skilled first officer. The Victory class Star Destroyer has the Emperor on it, and that's not bad because when people see Victories, they think it's easy to kill, so they're going to try to attack it. And it's also the slowest ship in your fleet, so people will try to corner it and kill it, again, because it's probably worth the most points, and so you'll get the Emperor effect often because it's probably going to be attacked often. External racks to throw on the extra black dice. The Haro title, so you can get the engine text, which makes you practically speed 3. And that's it. So it actually is a pretty cheap victory, because a lot of times victories you can just equip and then you're like, I might as well take a Star Destroyer. But this keeps it kind of simple and cheap because we're looking at, engine text throws it up a little bit, but you're looking at 18 points on it. So we're looking at just over 90 points, which isn't bad. Then we have a Gazanti class assault carrier, and it's the assault type because if you can obstruct it with ROM, you can throw 2 red dice, and then you can concentrate fire in for 3 red dice, which is now you're a side arc of an Architon. Parts resupply to give things engineering. That really helps the victory to stay alive because, people are going to be attacking it. The next is a Gazanti class assault frigate again. You don't see many assault frigates, which in the game you see I forget that it's assault frigate and I totally move myself into flak range and I'm like, I'm staying out of close range. Well, that's good if it had a black dice. It doesn't, so I'll flak you anyway. It has boarding trooper Darth Vader. I thought it had normal Darth Vader. I'll get back to you on that. Give me 1 second. Because I don't think it can take boarding trooper Darth Vader. It can only take officer Darth Vader. So, yeah, that's totally what that is officer Darth Vader. But I will double check. Because it can't even fit on this. Yes, Officer Darth Vader. That's why the skilled officer's there on the Architon, so you can chuck them and then with Officer Darth Vader and have a reroll. Next, Architon is just a light cruiser with skilled officer, and like I said, that's for Darth Vader to check out the airlock and get that reroll on its side arcs. The first Raider is a Raider 1 with ordnance experts and external racks, so if you get in close, you're really going to hit them hard. And then the second is a more complicated Raider. It is a Raider 2. It has Titus for opponent speed control, disposable capacitors, heavy ion emplacement, and the Corvus title. The Corvus title is there so you can plop it down first, pull it up, and put it where it needs to be. And with the disposable capacitors, you can shoot at long range and still possibly get the heavy ion emplacement. And then you can shoot at long range obstructed, which is kind of cool. So at long range, you could be 3 blue dice, a red dice. Admiral Titus is there, so you can choke him out with Darth Vader and throw him out the airlock. And then, let's say concentrate fire in 4 blue dice and a red dice, long range, heavy eye on someone. So I like Raider 2s in this capacity to be able to do those attacks. Okay, so that is it. So I'm going to go to the comments. If you guys have any comments or thoughts, hit up over there, and then we'll go over to how this very exhausting game for Ken and I went. Okay. So, Dublik says, I fully believe it was exhausting, but I'm glad you did the match. And we're glad we did it too. But it was very exhausting to, like Ken and I said it, we felt like we were in the Princess Bride movie, but you would know what I would do, so I wouldn't do that. But I know that you know that I know that you don't. And that's how we felt with activation, just trying to position our ships just out of range. So then when we moved in, it was I shoot, you shoot, I shoot, you shoot, and then try to get an advantage for that. And it was stressful to try to outmaneuver each other to get that first shot off. Let's see. I just leave my question here for later. How to deal with the Leia fleet as Gar Squadron? Focus one after another or spread out a bit? So in Madness, I discovered that if you're able to spread it out a little bit, I feel like you can punch through it better. But again, that was at a smaller point, so I don't know how 5 Hammerheads would do. But in that final match of Madness, Ken was healing up the one ship that I was shooting at very, very well, because every attack I do, he pushes 1 extra damage to another ship, and that ship is automatically healing it up, and then the pelt is passing it 2 damage. So you either really, really need to clobber it and kill it in 1 shot, or what I found is if I just plinked all of them, it comes to the point that cool, you're regenning shields, but I'm plinking all your ships for 3 damage. Do you really want to take another damage on your ship when it has no shields anymore? So spreading it out a little bit. I think that as a Gar Squadron has a rough time with Task Force Antilles because it's either your bombers are 1 damage or they are the 2 damage, and then like your Arc of 10's power of being able to hit someone with 2 isn't as great because it's like I redirect 1 to the side, you hit me, I transfer 1. Like it gives them almost like a free redirect to another ship. So I would say with your you have to like hit the fleet at the same time with everything, which is dangerous because that's what it wants. But you need to, let's say, because usually GAR runs like 1 main attack ship with a secondary ship like a Venator and a Acclimator. Like one of them needs to hit 1 ship, the other one needs to hit the other ship, and then your fighters move in and they try to kill those 2 ships. That's how I would deal with it. So hopefully that answers your question. Ken says, yes, he did choose it because of the victory. Basically, if you want Ken to play your fleet, you put a victory in it or Tarkin, and then he'll fight me for it. Would you rather do EST or Emperor Palpatine on the Vic? That's a good question. I would... It depends on how you deploy. And I'm going to talk about it in just a minute. How I would deploy this fleet would be much different than how Ken deployed it. And the way I would, in my head, deploy it, I would like the Emperor just because I would be clearly deploying it differently. And the victory would kind of be the lead ship into the fight while the other ships followed. So I expect it to die, but every shot that you take against it, I want you to be forced to spend a token because I'm going to then deplete the rest of your tokens with the follow-up shots, if that makes sense. So I personally would like the Emperor. EST makes it better against fighters, and that would have really helped Ken here. But I don't necessarily think... Like, they're both viable, so it's kind of just a preference point. Yeah, Ken agrees. We were Princess Briding it there. And then Dublix says it's awesome. Okay, so let's jump into the game, how it deployed, and what we were playing. Let me pull up the objectives. Okay, so I chose to go second, mainly because of both MSU versus MSU. We're both going to be in a game of our objectives are going to be very strongly tailored to what we're doing. So I wanted to use my objectives as leverage. The objectives that this fleet had are opening salvo, firing lanes, and dangerous territory. Firing lanes shouldn't be an objective here because you have no strategic. I would never choose firing lanes as my objective without strategic. You have a lot of firepower with the scouts, but as soon as like your fleets, that's good for like 2 turns. And then as the fleets come closer and fighters and everything come into effect, you're going to probably be past your firing lanes point, and like your hammerheads don't have good side arcs and they have no rear, so you can't really maneuver around your fire lane token locations without strategic. So I'm glad Ken did it, but he can't really do anything in these because he's MSU too, so it's good in MSU battled up. But I think like Planetary Ion would be a safer bet for this this fleet than fire lanes. Opening salvo's just fun because if you run against someone that's like a Starhawk, here's 12 extra dice for free against them, and then if they're still in the play area, I can score half points off of them just by having a damage card on them, so that's pretty sweet. Dangerous territory is the safest bet as second player to go against this fleet, and that is what Ken chose. So here we go with the deployment. Ken has the asteroids mainly on his side. I have the station because that's just a fun free token for me. And not free for Ken because I don't take the penalty for landing on these, and Ken takes the penalty for these. I started off with kind of a central deployment to the side, and then my fighters, and then I just plopped all of my hammerheads down in a row with the pelt in the back so it could just swing and pass shields to any of them, and I could just move my pelt a wall forward. that was kind of just my strategy. Hammerhead, wall forward. We shoot what's in front of us and we try to kill it as we go nice and slow through the board. Ken's deployment is very sporadic, but he actually does something that's really good and bad at the same time. So if you look at when the game develops, all of his ships obstruct themselves to my fleet. So my goal was to land here on these obstacles before we were in range. So then when I moved past them, I had unobstructed shots, so Ken didn't get the Ramadi die on me. But Ken very well put all of his ships in front of all of his ships so that he got Ramadi. How I would change that up is I would have dropped Corvus down first anywhere. And then as soon as I put a ship, that becomes my target. And I would have put the Victory as far forward as it could right there. Then next what I would do is kind of how Ken has the Architens like to sweep behind. I would have the Architens to the side. So the Victory in the middle and then the Architens can go around it. And then the Raiders can kind of sit with the Victory, with the Gazantes coming behind the Victory in like into the fleet, kind of how he ended up doing it. Later on, you'll see that the Gazanti kind of like turns behind the Victory and then was getting obstructed shots on me with that red dice. So kind of like the Victory goes forward and then the others squeeze in behind it. So that's how I would do the deployment, which would be different. But that's why I think the Emperor would be better than Expert Shield Tech, is because it's the lead ship into it. And if you don't kill it, it's a lot of dice right in your face every single turn. So you have to kind of shoot at it. And you're having to spend tokens, and then the Architens just kind of shoot into you after that. And then, like, if you're in close range, then the Raiders are in close range and blue dice and things, and then the Gazantes are hitting you with extra red dice. So that's how I kind of imagine that this fleet would work, and that's why I think the Emperor would work better for it. As you can see, we are now positioning ourselves for fighting. Ken lands on the asteroid fields with Gazantes and stuff like that to gain the cards. And as you can see, like, he's folding the ships into each other right here. And that's kind of what I was referring to. Like, you just imagine the Victory is where this Gazanti is, and it will be clearly the first thing to die. But the rest of the ships can, like, kind of fold in behind it and use it as cover and then spread out into the ships as it goes. So that's kind of how I would imagine it going. I have my line. It's just the line waiting for this to go. I think I spent like almost an entire round of firing into a Gazanti at long range, obstructed, like one dice at a time. And it was hard. It was brutal. And I think I finally killed it after like 2 turns of fire. Another option for this fleet is, instead of the shield card, you could do Intensify Firepower. But it doesn't work as well unless you have Ahsoka somewhere to feed the changing of Riantilli's dial. And that's something to consider, is Intensify Firepower, because this list becomes way meaner, because if you look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times 2, because you're concentrating firing, Intensify Firepower on each of that's a guaranteed each round 10 points of damage between gunnery teams and Intensify, which is nuts. So back it up. That's a change I would recommend, just if you wanted to try something different. And then we get into this brawl. My ships are really close together shooting. Ken's ships are coming in super close. And as you can see, like, look at this. This is actually like perfect position for this Architen and this Architen, because as I come in, this Architen can shoot through this Architen, get obstructed. This Raider, because it wants to be close in anyway, like, it's probably not going to be obstructed, but like this Architen, basically any ship he shoots at with this Architen, it's going to be obstructed because of this Raider. Great. That's kind of what you want. yeah, it's cool. I like it. But the fighting begins. And then, like, this is, like, at this point, like, probably turn 4. I've only lost one hammerhead because I kind of had a suicided into the victory. And at close range, victories are pretty strong. Who would have thought? Especially against a hammerhead. But, again, Ken shots are being obstructed by ships. This Gazanti is going to swing behind the victory. And my ships are now just coming into the battle. Again, everything's folding into each other. We basically just both collapsed in on each other, and whoever had the most hull at the end was going to win. But this is what I was talking about with the Gazanti. So this blue dice can be obstructed to medium range, so things that are right in front of it, and then this red dice can reach over here, obstructed through the victory. Perfect. That's 2 dice automatically. Throw in a Confire, you got 3 dice out of a Gazanti into a ship at long range. It's kind of crazy. And yep, that's it. So at the end of this turn, Ken's ships had taken too much damage, and I think one hammerhead pretty much finished both the actual ships off, leaving just the Gazanti, and at that point, nothing else would die. This one died. I think it's one of these two that finished them both off. So it was a stressful game, but a fun game. But that was mainly because Ken and I were just like way overthinking it, trying to out MSU each other. So if you have any comments or thoughts on that, go into the comments. I'm going to answer a few comments, and then we'll get to the next fleet and the next battle. For 2 points, I like the chart officer. I actually really like the chart officer too. I used it a bunch in our Sum of All Things games. Mainly because the Summa is a terrible thing to land on. And if we decided to play with the Rift, I could just ignore the Rift for one turn and hopefully like get over it. So it is or is that Chart Officer? I think that is, right? That's the one that allows you to ignore obstacles. Let me check. A lot of the not so famous officers I get a little confused on. Yeah, chart officer is the one that allows you to ignore an overlap of an obstacle. I want to like chart officer, but I generally need those slots for something else. Yes, I would agree with that. I'm trying to think if it's the next game. Yeah, I think the next fleet we're going to be going over, I think that one has some chart officers. Let's switch over to it. What a great segue. Thank you. Yep. Cool. Perfect segue. Thank you, guys. Let's talk about it. Okay, so this next match in fleets, again, we have Jeff Carpenter II's fleet, and that's the Grievous fleet we're talking about right now, and then Grand Admiral Dux, which is the Rebel fleet that we'll talk about in just a minute. And it has chart officers. Cool. So this is a Providence class carrier. It is General Grievous, chart officer, which I got a use out of in this game. I was pretty excited about that. Early warning system, hardened bulkheads, external racks, point defense ion cannons, Ling turbo laser towers, invincible, and reinforced blast doors. It is fully loaded up. It's kind of a nut ship. Something I talk about in this episode and things that I've actually thought about a lot before is the Providence I use like a battering ram. And if you go back and you watch almost like all of our seasons, whenever I have a Providence, most of the damage that I get on them is myself ramming other ships or my ships or Ken ramming me. Hardened bulkheads kind of solves that problem, and I can just ignore anything smaller than me. Which in this game saved me a lot of damage. I think his Pelta ran into me twice and I ran into his Pelta twice or something like that. Like most of the damage on the Pelta was done by ramming, and hardened bulkheads allowed me to do that. Everything else is kind of standard for Providence's early warning system and reinforced blast doors with the invincible title are, I would say, the two outliers. A lot of times you will see ECM just so that you can guarantee use your brace, which I think saves you a lot of damage. But external racks is pretty standard on it. Point defense ion cannons, and then everything in the CIS faction is stapled with linked turbo laser towers, so that's pretty much the ship. The next ship also has chart officer. It has a recusant light destroyer. It has ordnance expert, so you can reroll the black dice. Hardened bulkheads, which I like as well because I usually end up ramming things. I usually ram everything with everything, so hardened bulkheads should really be more up there on my list of things that I like to bring. Assault proton torpedoes, so you can get crits, link turbo laser towers, and the Patriot's Fist title. Personally, I don't like taking assault proton torpedoes with recusants unless I'm using swivel to try, or TF, to try to maximize how many black dice I can get in. Because assault proton torpedoes is a 4-point card that this specific ship can only use at close range, but you really don't want this ship to be in close range. You want it to be at long or medium range, so then you can Patriot Fist. Unless you have swivel, and then obviously you can throw black dice at long range. So that card I would have probably preferred to be external racks, just for that one time when I get in close, use it, and then try to run away. Link turbo laser towers is pretty standard because it's Patriot Fist and you're pretty much going to be rolling red dice in every single attack. That's it. Next ship, another chart officer. Point defense ion cannons to help keep it alive, and the stapled on link turbo laser towers. Then you have 4 vulture droids. So the biggest things that I would change on this list is there's not enough fighters really to make me care that it's a Grievous list. Like, I like the ships, so it's hard to say what I would change. Like, I would probably strip off the Invincible and Reinforced Blasters, but that's only 10-ish points, right? It's only 10 points. Oh, it's so hard. Because you need a few more fighters. A few more fighters would give you the ability to deploy your ships better because your deployments would be more. And then leverage Grievous more. Because this is 4 uses of Grievous if it's timed right. And then your ships have to explode. So a lot of Grievous fleets that I've seen do very, very well is they have like 6. I think I've used it in the past, or I'm going to. I don't remember. Sometimes I forget where we are filming wise. But like 6 vultures and like 4 hyenas. I think I've done that episode. Anywho. Or like 5 vultures and 5 hyenas. It gets more expensive, but then you have like 5 deployments and then so much nonsense to use as Grievous fodder. Because if you ignore 4 or 5 hyenas, they're going to make you pay dearly. But right now, 4 vultures kind of keeps someone off you for like 1 turn, and then you're reliant on point defense ion cannons and the EWS to keep you alive from there. But it's not a lot of Grievous. It's like this is one of the problem with Grievous and Trench in the CIS commanders or faction. You would like, there's not enough points for everything you want to do. Like if this fleet was 50 points more, like honestly 450 points, I could make awesome fleets. You would be able to bring these 3 ships, which would be great, and then just like deck it out with like 50 more points of squadrons, which would be roughly the extra 2 vultures and 4 hyenas to make it a really actual effective like fighter ball. Let's see, that would be 7 plus 7 plus, I think they're 11, so that's 44, 58. So it would be 58. Then you could drop the Invincible and the Hardened Blast Doors, and it would be an amazing 450 point fleet. Yeah, that's funny. So I think now we're going to go on to the next fleet, and that is the Agate fleet. Agate is amazing. I think she is the strongest rebel commander because she's cheap. She gives you an extra token, which really has no, like, of your choice, which really has no actual cost that you can really compare it to in the game. And then it allows you to get ECM for free by discarding a token. It can be any token, and you can do it every single time. So that's like better than ECM. So that's at least 10 points there. And then our tokens at least 10 points. So it's great. The problem with Agate lists is what you see that happened in this battle. Is that I just ignored the Agate ship and focused in on killing everything else in the fleet. And it's one of the reasons why I feel that most Agate fleets that do very, very well end up being Starhawk lists. And it's not necessarily just the Starhawk or just Agate that makes that the case. It's both of them put together that Agate can live on a super ship that can hide over 50% of your ship's or your fleet's points. You stick the rest into fighters, so then you're already at like 330 some points, and then you just fill up until a bid with support ships, which are usually two transports, and you land in like the 380 range. But all your points are hidden on the Agate fleet ship, the Starhawk, and you force your opponent to kill it. Like, killing the transports in some squadrons isn't going to win you the game because that's still less than 50% of your fleet. But with this ship, less than 50% of your fleet, like, you actually have other ships in this fleet. And that makes it so an assault frigate's pretty easy to kill. And a Pelta by itself is easy to kill. So you just kill that and don't let like a salvo boat or anything like that really engage you. You just ignore it. That's kind of how I approach the game. That actually gets into how I play the game, but I think that from a building perspective, that's kind of important to take consideration of. Like Agate on an MC30, when you get like a brace or something crazy, so then the MC30 doesn't die. Well, I'm already probably not going to fight and try to kill your MC30, and now I guarantee I'm not going to fight and kill your MC30, but like a fully decked out MC30 with commander comes to be like 120 points, which I can ignore it and fight the rest of your fleet just fine. So just thoughts, like we'll take a look at this MC75 and you see it's really, really decked, but for the most part, you can just ignore it. So it's an MC75 armed cruiser, has Krista Agate, expert shield tech, so depending on what token you take with her, you can do multiple expert shield techs a turn. Local fire control, so you're taking one of the contains and switching it out for a salvo. Even though salvo's blue-black, it's still a salvo. Quad laser turrets. So while defending, you get counter 1. So I don't want to attack you with fighters because you expert shield techs it down to 0, and then you get a counter me. No, thank you. Redundant shields. So you're gaining shields back because you don't need ECM on this ship because Krista Agate gives you that ability. Ordnance pod. So if I move fighters close to you, you're flacking me, moving and then flacking me again. SW7. So all the blue dice becomes automatically a damage. Link turbo lasers to reroll the red dice. And aspiration. So you can start with like a super focused shields. And what's weird about this, like, it's a very strong ship, but you almost made it too strong, and that sounds really dumb to say. But I have no incentive whatsoever to go fight this ship. I'm going to get salvoed. I really need to get close to it to probably kill it due to the fact that most like the stronger dice are black dice. Expert shield tax, everything about it makes it like a not fun ship to fight. So let's not do it. Like that's kind of like what my answer to it was when I looked at it. Then your next ship is an assault frigate Mark IIB. It has Major Durlin, so that reduces damage. Fire Control Team. You may exhaust this card to do more than one critical effect. And I think this was due to the fact of what objectives came with this fleet. Let me check. Yeah, I don't know, because it makes it really difficult. So then, like, on an objective, you can, like, use your normal crit and then the special effect. And then you have point defense reroute, which allows you to reroll flak against squadrons when you get a crit. Advanced projector, so you can move it around. Ken is a huge fan of advanced projectors, so I understand that it's very powerful, especially with like these rebel ships with tons of shields to be able to just pass around. And then enhanced armament, so your sides are super powerful. Cool. Next ship is a Pelta class assault frigate. It has Hondo Anaka, so you can pass out tokens. Lando, so you can force rerolls. Medical team, which as soon as I realized Ken had it, I just am like, I don't want to do crits. You can just take the damage as normal. Entrapment formation, then when you get in close, like wide area barrage with... I was thinking about this the other day. I don't know if I have ever... on the channel, I don't know if we've ever actually gotten wide area barrage off. Because it's a rarely used card. And I don't know if we've ever done it, or it was like in a situation that we both knew about it. So we both positioned ourselves so that even if it were to happen, it wouldn't do anything. And then Phoenix Home is there to allow for Han and not Han, Hondo and Lando to both be on the ship. For squadrons, you have X-Wing squadrons. You have 3 of them, and then you have 2 A-Wing squadrons. And this goes back to the same thing that I said about the Leia fleet. I prefer to have even number deployments, just because for deployment's sake, you don't have to like... Because sometimes I've even forgotten to put out a fighter when it's odd, because in my brain it should already been on the table because it has to be the last thing deployed. So how I would change this fleet is I would change the MC-75 to be less survivable. And I know that sounds really, really stupid, but when I see a Pelta and when I see an assault frigate, I see 2 ships that I can very easily kill. And the MC-75 is a tank and not worth enough points necessarily for me to want to focus it in until the rest of the fleet's done. Which then doesn't leave it, because MC-75s actually are terrible ships unless the person wants to headlong into you to try to get into position, because it's really a short range ship to get enough firepower off. Like just throwing 2 dice out the front at blue range isn't really enough like for flying, so you kind of like have to like either be right into it. That's why it's always Radis dropped in. Or you're using it as like a side flank ship, and at that point you might as well have another assault frigate, because assault frigates side broadside better than 75s. That's just my opinion. So that's kind of that. So we'll bounce over to chat, see if I've missed anything. Then we'll go over objectives and how the game went up. Okay. I messed up with superior position on this one. Bad choice on objective here. Yes, but let's talk about that. I'm going to talk about it in a second, so I'm just going to pause that, and then we'll talk about your objectives in a minute. One day we'll get that backseat episode about objectives. I know, I still have it written. I barely have enough time right now to, obviously, because I'm double stacking backseat episodes, and editing, like, is very hard to do right now. So I don't have extra time to record an entire backseat, edit it, and everything like that. That's what happens when you have a kid. Kids eat your time. And now my kid is like, he's at the point that he's not walking, but he's standing. and pulling himself up on everything, doing a lot of falling. So you can't like look away for a single second. He just needs all the time, all the time. Good morning, Scott. Is QLTs ever worth it on ISDs or other large ships? So generally, I would say no. But when I was at the Chicago Open earlier this year, and I was like test driving the Farm Hawk list that I ended up winning Gen Con with, someone brought double IST. I think the third match had double IST with quad laser turrets, and knowing how much hull he had and how much health my Starhawk had, I had to engage his Star Destroyers before they were necessarily in range of my Star Destroyer, or Star Destroyer, Starhawk, to get enough damage into it so then the Starhawk could kill it. And what that meant is that I was eating rounds of flak from I think it was an ISD2. And then it had quad, so I was eat a round of flak, attack it, get countered, and then like the next round, because we weren't necessarily in range, and he had gunnery team, so he could shoot my Starhawk, which was the only ship worth shooting. Then he could flak it again. So that's like over the course of like 1.5 rounds, I took 5 dice of attacks against my like YT 2400s, which really hurts, because eventually that's going to get through and kill it. And like that's like 50%, like fighters are 50% of that fleet's firepower. So that really hurts. So in that specific case against specific lists, it can be useful, but the slot is contested and it's overpriced, I think, because 5 points, when you really break down what other things are 5 points, gets pretty expensive. Yes, Ken, we know you love advanced projectors. Ken actually, I know we talked about this after Gen Con, but his MC30s, they don't use the titles. He uses advanced projectors instead, and he does extremely well with that for moving damage around. It goes into the same thing I was kind of saying about the MC75. Like, when you make your ship not worth attacking, it's almost like a piece that doesn't exist on the game. So not having the title means that people actually attack it more, and then you get more use out of the advanced projectors to keep your ship alive. It's kind of like a weird paradox type thing. I think we've tried using wide area barrage, but either the black crits don't come up, or PDICs, or we just keep things out of range. Yeah, like maybe we need to just make a game that we both just play black dice ships, and with the whole point of it is to get wide area barrage off. That would be funny. Which begs the question: new meta, equip, WAB, wide area barrage as a avoid mechanism. I think most players, you won't see run across it, and then you run into the issue that people just don't even know what one it does, so they don't even know to avoid it. That like there might be a meta that you could actually squeeze it in and use it, is what I think. Apparently Ken had a light bulb go off. What exactly light bulb went off? I'm just curious. So he'll hopefully post that or message me. So let's talk about objectives for Jeff's fleet, the Grievous fleet. So we have advanced gunnery, which I think is a good objective. You can strap that onto your Providence, and then the Providence is even a harder wrecking ball as you missile it into the middle of the enemy's fleet with hardened bulkheads and chart officer to ignore stuff. Planetary ion cannon, I like that too. Not necessarily for Grievous. And then superior positions is usually one of my favorite to take, but I don't think it does this fleet any favors. And the reason why is if you ran up against a squad heavy fleet, 100% they don't even read your cards, they pick superior positions because you have 4 vultures. With only 4 vultures, that means that they can kill all of your squadrons in 1 round, especially if you're like facing someone like Sloan or like the new Hera Biggs ball, like each of your fighters takes one X-wing really to kill, or one TIE interceptor. And then you have no squadrons, and the rest of the game they just farm tokens off of you. You do have the EWS to block your Providence, but that doesn't do anything for your Recusant, and that doesn't really do anything for your Munificent. The Munificent at least has point defense ion cannon, so it forces a reroll. But like if you run into something, let's say with fire sprays, and that's 2 blue dice, you're gonna just give them free points a lot. And then like even rolling down the damage is actually detrimental because then they can make more attacks against your rear. So if I were to change something, I would change that card out. My 2 preferred objectives for yellow and blue for Grievous fleets are asteroid tactics and infested fields. Specifically, that you get the extra costs, and then you can have control over killing your squadrons in the middle of the game board. Because with Grievous, you can fly your squadrons off the board, but like most of the combat takes place in the middle of the board, and that turn that your ships are in the middle of the board that you actually want Grievous to trigger, you can't reach either of the game or any of the game edges to throw a fighter off to Grievous it. But if you had the Exorgorths in it, you just make this little kill bubble with both of them, and then your opponent has to roll 6 dice against a vulture. Well, guess what? The vulture is going to die, and then I get my token back. I like being able to force that. And then asteroid tactics, if you land on an asteroid, you don't take the damage, and then you can redo your tokens. So that gives Grievous like another way to just burn through tokens really fast and stay alive. And then controlling the obstacles and the Exorgorths in infested fields. Those are my 2 preferred things that I would switch to. Also, if you wanted to do the blue with deployment activation, like advantage, if you use Solar Corona instead, that actually benefits you because then your whole fleet can go down next, and then you can just battering ram in the Providence wherever you want, and then the Patriot Fist can try to outmaneuver someone, and then you don't have like that super negative effect of the accuracies. I'm sorry. Getting farmed for tokens, and then you won't have as many accuracies against you, which then will allow you to spend tokens faster, so then you can possibly get that Grievous effect more. So those would be my 3 recommendations. Probably for sure switching out the yellow for asteroid tactics, switching out the blue for Solar Corona, or infested fields. So hopefully that answers your question. I know you sent us what blue or what card besides superior position would you choose, and it would be that. And then your opponent has a harder choice. They're still not going to pick advanced gunnery, so you would probably need to get really good at playing infested fields, honestly. So that is my take on that. So let's go to the game and see how it went. We both had enough fighters to make deploying against each other annoying, and then the same amount of ships. Because Ken's first, I got to put my ship down last. I believe I put the Patriot's Fist down last. As you can see here, Munificent middle, squadrons. Pelta middle, squadrons. Assault frigate goes down before either of my 2 other ships. And this is why like 1 additional fighter here to allow 6 activations, or what I was saying, like 5, you could then control where your ships go down. Because as soon as Ken put down the assault frigate here, I could drop all of my stuff safely here and try to focus it down, because that's the easiest point to score points off of Ken's list. And then when I saw this go down and point off in the other direction, I'm like, perfect, this game's done. I'm going to trap the assault frigate, and that MC-75 won't ever come into the game. I'm just going to focus it down. If I kill the Pelta, I kill the Pelta, but for sure, with these 3 ships, all the focus is on the assault frigate. It dies, I fly by. This ship at this angle, I don't think would ever be able to really get into combat. So I was planning on ignoring it anyway, and this made it very easy for me to just shoot into the middle and then out to the side and ignore it. So that's pretty much what happens. You can see that I have a kill box here, focusing in on this assault frigate, and I had like one of the most accurately annoying rolls that I've ever had. It was like all the Patriot Fist dice were like accuracies, all the red dice were accuracies, and then I had like 1 damage. So it was like, I block 6 tokens, take 1 damage, and it's like that's just not what you want. Yeah, that was a frustrating shot. And then Ken's X-Wings couldn't kill any of my vultures, which was kind of funny. Like, he attacked like 1 vulture 3 times because he kept getting 1 damage. And then you can see I smashed into Ken's fleet because this ship really has nowhere good to go. Ken gets first activation, so he can jump it here, but he's in the kill box of all of these. Like, I did like a reverse kill box here, especially after Patriot's Fists like just whiffed. If he jumps it here, the Munificent can shoot it. I can shoot it probably out of my rear and maybe aside if he goes this way with the Providence, but the Providence can focus in on the Spelta. And then just the way the Patriot Fist is, it's probably going to be, if it doesn't land on this asteroid, close range or long range. Like, that's like the perfect zones for Patriot Fist to be in. So if you also blast by me, then I get rear shots to use the superior position. So that's the hard choice that Ken had. This ship now has the hard choice. And we talk about this, I think, in the after action report. Ken had the choice. He could either dive it into my fleet at this point from the side, probably killing the Munificent, because he pretty much killed the Munificent anyway. But then these 2 ships can just light it up, and that's kind of why I have this still positioned a little bit farther away, because then I can just turn it in and go after him if he decides to come after me, and then the Providence is just a Providence, so he decided not to. And as fun as it would be, because like a lot of times Ken and I make decisions, Ken and I make decisions in the game that sometimes it's just fun to watch things explode. Things had already exploded, and he didn't feel like it was necessary to dive the MC-80 in, or MC-75 in to, at this point, be triple attacked by actually pretty strong side arcs here. But this is what I was talking about with the MC-75. Like, it's hard because at this point, like, this is a super tanky ship, right? It's got Agate, it's got all the tokens, it's got Salvo. But it's a broadsiding right here with 3 ships that are better at broadsiding. Munificent 3 dice. I think this Providence is 3 dice, maybe 2. It's 2, but like still 2 dice. And if you're in blue range, 4. And then Recusants, like, they're great at throwing out the side and / front red dice. So all 3 of these ships can throw an equal amount of dice at range at this ship. So this is like firepower wise 3-on-1, and these ships actually are more powerful than that ship. So that's just like a really bad matchup at that point. And they fly by. So that's the end of that game. So that's kind of like my thoughts. I think for fleet thoughts, and this isn't meant to be offensive, but like the reason why these 2 fleets went against each other is like in my made up head, like how powerful fleets are, these were equivalent. And if you've seen the other fleets that we've flown in this season, like neither of these fleets want to go up against like a double Onager list or an Onager interdictor list. Like, we had some really, really, really mean fleets that were like S tier level when these are like B tier fleets, and they were fun fleets to fly, but they matched up well against each other for this type of thing. Objectives, I always feel like superior position always like comes to bite me. It almost bit me a bunch in Madness. So I hope Jeff, you liked the little talk about how to change the objectives for this admiral. So that's about it. I'm gonna look at comments again, and then probably go to wrap things up. I gotta head to bed so I can wake up and go back to work. So okay, let's see. Really just Ken pretending that he didn't say a light bulb went off, and then yeah, your dice were terrible in this game. Like your X-wings should have killed. Like I was just with a vulture straight up attacking your A-wings, and you weren't able to kill me on counter and attacking me. It was just, ugh. But sometimes that takes place. So okay, good. I'm glad you like the suggestions. Yes, I would only take superior position if I was playing like a full 134 points of squadrons and I planned on attacking ships with the squadrons. That's really the only time. It's like one of the best squadron specific things because ships actually rarely get behind each other in most combats. They mostly just crash into each other and then die. You rarely get back shots unless you're like really MSUE. I enjoyed season 5 fleets. Thanks to everyone who submitted. I agree, Ken. And still going on in chapter 2. Yes, so the at Sumna, if you watch, we released on Tuesday a video of the sum of all things, and we had a new contest that is going on for that video. So it's like a 2-week time period too. So not this Tuesday, but the following Tuesday, we will be drawing a random winner from that. And all you have to do is be a subscriber, comment on that specific video, hashtag Summa, SUMMA, to be entered into it. And then the winner will send one set of the Summa All Things tokens. So we have a winner for the first Summa, and that is Matthew. So I believe Matthew is going to be reaching out to Ken so we can get your info so we can send that out to him. Thanks for commenting. Thanks for being a subscriber, and hope you enjoy the Summa kit. Ken and I had fun with it. We're trying to figure out how to fit that into game because we, after playing it, like I think Ken's played it quite a few times now because he actually made it to Games Plus to play it. But I have other ideas and I want to try other fleets. I at least want to play each of the factions once. Just to once I did, but Ken actually already stole the idea I had, which are the hyperspace rings. I'm like, oh man, so now I have to try to figure out different types of strategy for that. So, will Ryan's cat ever get to be in the Sumna game? They'd be close in skill. Yeah, his cat's always a cat. Well, basically everyone that owns a cat in like command stack is always on there trying to bother him. And Ken's going to be releasing a unboxing learn to play with the next winner in it on that, I think December 13th is what he's saying. So I'll give you guys a spoiler for the final, I'm going to call it normal episode of season 5, because like we always like on the 10th episode to do something crazy. So here it is. It is a Screed list and a Jerjerrod list. And what I can say about both these lists is they're both brawling lists. So it becomes a bloodbath. So crazy stressful, really good game. Can't wait till you guys check it out. So that's coming up later this week, Friday. I think that's about it. So I'm going to wrap it up here. If you guys want to chat, you can always find us on Discord. Ken and I, with me being up at the nighttime, if you do stuff at night, I respond to that. Ken being a daytime person, he's up for most of that, so you can always reach out to one of us, and then there's the overlap time that we're both awake that you can talk to both of us there. So until next time, I've enjoyed being able to do Backseat a couple times and catch up. So until next time, I'm John. Thanks from Ken, who's in the comments, and you're watching Ion Radio. So take care.